Greetings again, Cinema Appreciation class. I hope you're doing fantastically well. Today we are going to talk about a Freytag pyramid and narrative structure within a film. Many of you will be doing a Freytag analysis as part of your discussion board postings next week. So we want to make sure that we actually have this kind of a skill down. It will also serve for you to come up with a good cinema structure for your upcoming film that all of you will be working on in the very near future. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Talk about how the Freytag is set up. So the Freytag is basically based upon a pyramid. It's actually, the correct pronunciation is Freytag. It's a German individual. Basically, it says that the way that we set up a narrative structure in a film, and there are some variations, so this is the simplest of the lot, shows off with the exposition. The exposition is that background information you need to know. So as we talked about in our last class, if you have an open form film, the idea that it's a film that ties in with the world around us already, you don't need to tell us that Hitler is bad, that Titanic sank. We know those features that are going to show up. They're part of common parlance and culture. However, if you have a closed form film like a science fiction, we need to know, is it in the future? What's the problem? Are the ice ages, have they come back? Are there dinosaurs running us in Jurassic Park like behind me? We'll need to know those features. Then to go from the exposition, that information that we need to have in the closed form, or the information that could be there for an open form as well, you're going to give rising actions. There are generally 3 main events that lead to rising actions, but there's generally 8 to 10 rising actions themselves. So there's 3 to 4 main ones. This is what sets up the conflict, the problem within the film that makes it interesting, that makes us want to solve it. When we get to the point of the climax, that's the most suspenseful part of the plot. It's the turning point of the protagonist of the character where the resolution starts to come out. And so it generally takes 8 to 10 different actions to get us there. 3 main actions. It could be the death of a main character. It could be a kidnapping. You're trying to find the individual. Could be the love loss and kind of the turmoil that you go through as you're trying to figure out what the new life expectancy is. After the climax, or at the climax, that's the major resolution. So in an action film, that's where most of your action takes place. In Star Wars, for example, this is the fight over the Death Star. What are they going to do? Will Luke be able to get away with it, with all those guns and other transports that happen to be there that are fighting him? In Pandora, it's the fight where our lovely main character takes over and actually mounts a dragon, basically, and flies around fighting the military, for those who have seen that film. In Toy Story, it's the conclusion where they're fighting Sid to try to save their friend. That's the climax. After the climax, there's often 2 or 3 events that help unravel any missing highlights that show up. Do characters fall in love because of it? Do they have a new refound friendship? You've got a Friend in Me song coming in from Toy Story. And note the denouement, so the resolution basically is that aspect of what gets resolved. The denouement then is the tying up of any loose ends. In Star Wars, Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and Chewbacca, they all get medals at the very end for their heroic bravery. R2-D2 gets fixed after he's shot down by a laser cannon within the battle scene. Note the denouement generally ends at a little bit of a higher action, the exposition. That is typical. And the denouement in most recent films, if you are worried or potentially considering making another second film, you'll generally leave a piece of the plot hanging. At the end of Jumanji 1, the remake, you hear the music playing again in that game, which tells us, hey, this film does well enough, they're going to make another Jumanji 2 to take another $10 away from my hard-earned money. So we're going to see that in the denouement. It kind of leads into sequels. The most fun part of any of these are the expositions. What's fun is the expositions are generally done in very different ways. Remember, this is the information you need to have in order for the plot to make sense. So the exposition in Star Wars, we all know. How does all Star Wars movies begin? With the exposition. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, music cue. And then here comes the exposition. The pieces of information that you need to know to understand, to make sure that the film is going to make sense for you. They're going to tell you everything at the very beginning. Our next example, the Exposition and Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you don't know, Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark starts off with an action sequence where Indiana Jones is kind of this badass archaeologist that we find out is out hunting for relics, and he finds this relic and it's taken away by his enemy that we're going to see later on in Belloc. But in order to understand any of that information, we need to know that he's an archaeologist, he's a college professor, and so that is actually explained in the second scene, where it scrolls into exactly what he does.
Neo, meaning new and lithic. I-T-H-I-C, meaning stone. All right, let's get back to this site. Turknine Barrow near Hazleton. Contains a central passage and 3 chambers or cysts.
You can see that he's a sex symbol because it's almost all females in his class. And this is many years ago, the 1920s, when it was dominated by men.
This site also demonstrates one of the great dangers of archaeology, not the life and limb, although that does sometimes take place. No, I'm talking about folklore. In this case, local tradition held that there was a golden coffin buried at the site. And this accounts for the holes dug all over the barrow and the generally poor condition of the
So
find.
here's
However,
he's explaining his understanding of the importance of the images.
That were found in another in the area gives a reason to date this find as we have. Any questions then? No, okay, that's it for the day then. Don't forget, Michael's in chapters 4 and 5 for next time. And I will be in my office on Thursday, but not Wednesday.
So here's where we learn about the exposition and about his background.
I had it in my hand. What happened? Yes. Belloc, want to hear about it?
Not at all. I'm sure everything you do for the museum conforms to the International Treaty for Protection of Antiquities.
It's beautiful, Marcus. I can get it. I got it all figured out. There's nothing place you can sell it. Marrakesh. I need $2,000. Listen, look,
You've got 5 rows of people to see you. Look,
I got these pieces. They're good pieces, Marcus. Well,
yeah, yes, the museum will buy them as usual. No questions asked. Yes, they are nice.
worth at least the price of a ticket to
The
Marrakesh.
people I brought are informed, not waging.
What people?
Army intelligence. And you were coming before I did. Seem to know everything. They wouldn't tell me what they want.
What do I want to see them for? What am I, in trouble?
Yeah, Dr. Jones, I've heard a great deal about this. Have you? Professor of archaeology, expert on the occult, and I was one to say it, obtainer of rare antiquities.
Wait a second. Why don't you sit down and do one?
And so here we learn what the rest of the movie is going to be about, because they're here actually starting to ask questions about a particular object.
University of Chicago.
Yes, I did.
You have no idea of his present whereabouts?
Just rumors, really. Somewhere in Asia, I think. I haven't really spoken to him for 10 years. We were friends, but a bit of a falling out, I'm afraid.
Dr. Jones, now, you must understand that this is all strictly confidential.
I understand.
Yesterday afternoon, our European sections intercepted a German communique that was sent from Cairo to Berlin. Now, you see, over the last 2 years, the Nazis have had teams of archaeologists running around the world looking for all kinds of religious artifacts. Hitler's a nut on the subject. He's crazy. He's obsessed with the occult. And right now, apparently, there's some kind of German archaeological dig going on in the desert outside of Cairo. We've got some information here, but we can't make anything out of it, and maybe you can. Tanis development proceeding. Acquire headpiece, staff of Ra, Abner Ravenwood, U.S.
Nazis have discovered Tanis.
So what does that mean to you, Tanis?
Well, the city of Tanis is one of the possible resting places of the Lost Ark.
The Lost Ark.
Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant, the chest the Hebrews used to carry around the Ten Commandments. What do you mean the Commandments? You're talking about the Ten Commandments? Yes, the actual Ten.
Another way of doing exposition is to actually embed it within a scene that actually takes place, so you have an idea. So one of the great ones actually takes place in The Godfather, when Michael is debating on what he wants to do with his life. So this actually happens at his sister's wedding.
You never told me you knew Johnny Fontaine.
You want to meet him?
Huh? Oh, right. Sure.
My father helped him with his career.
He did? How?
Listen to the song.
No, Michael.
I have but one heart to share with you. I have but one that I can cling to. You are the one tree.
It appears completely antithetical to plot, and yet it sets up the plot, and here it is. Here's the exposition.
You know, when Johnny was first starting out, he was signed to this personal service contract with a big band leader. And as his career got better and better, he wanted to get out of it. Now, Johnny is my father's godson. And my father went to see this band leader. He offered him $10,000 to let Johnny go. But the band leader said no. So the next day, my father went to see him, only this time with Luca Brazzi. And within an hour, he signed a release for a certified check of $1,000.
How did he do that?
My father made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
What was that?
Luca Brazzi held a gun to his head, and my father assured him that either his brains or his signature would be on the contract. It's a true story.
So now we have an idea of what the family life she's about to get involved in is going to involve, and whether Michael Corleone will ascend to the throne of his family or not. Back to the Future, a different type of exposition. In this case, we basically have an event that takes place that later on is going to impact future and past events. And so the DeLorean comes out. And so you can always go back and watch this one, but it's a different way of introducing exposition. We're going to have the exposition also in Silence of the Lambs. The first time we meet Hannibal Lecter, we know there's a serial killer going on, but we don't know the extent of it or if there's any contact between serial killers in prison. And here's the scene where we actually learn that these two, and we'll see this scene later on in great acting, because it's a phenomenal acted scene. Jurassic Park, one of my favorites, and I notice I'm behind the Jurassic Park sign for today. How do we get the exposition?
So what do you think?
We're going to get the exposition. We need the explanation. How do you make dinosaurs? We're going to take a ride. And the ride's going to explain how the genetics work.
How did I get here?
So this is all the background information we need to have.
Well, let me show you. First, I need a drop of blood. Your blood. Right. Oh, John, relax, John. It's all part of the miracle of cloning. Hello, John. Hello, John. Hello. Hello, John. From what? Hello. My extractions never recreated in 10 years. Sequence count. Hello, John.
DNA from what source? Where do you get 101-year-old dinosaur blood?
What? What? Oh, it's the DNA.
And now later on, when you are doing your own analysis next week for your discussion board, it'll be your job to explain the exposition, the three main rising actions and the sub-rising actions, 8 to 10, that bring us to the climax, and then the climax and the denouement or any falling actions that take place. Now, if you choose a complicated scenario that has more than one climax, you'll have to figure out which one is taller and which one comes first Because some films do have two climaxes that show up. This is famous for like Quentin Tarantino films, for example. And so that will be your discussion board for next week.
After biting a dinosaur, the mosquito would land on a branch of a tree and get stuck in the sap. After a long time, the tree sap would get hard and become fossilized, just like a dinosaur bone, preserving the mosquito inside. This fossilized tree sap, which we call amber, waited for millions of years with the mosquito inside, until Jurassic Park scientists came along. Using sophisticated techniques, they extract the preserved blood from the mosquito and bingo, dino DNA of the entire.
And so that's what we're looking at. There's also the Exposition and Terminator, the explanation, a different version of it. Which aspects of reality do you want? So when you're doing that Freytag triangle, of course you can't do Star Wars A New Hope. Here's a student's project before. And as you know and kind of go up, you'll see there's the very beginning. We need to have the exposition that shows up. This is what we're having over here. We have those rising actions all the way to the very climax. Then we have the falling actions that ultimately will lead to the denouement. And because they did not know if this film would do well, they did not leave it necessarily open-ended. So there might be a second or a third film. They just weren't ready for it yet. This is what you'll be doing as your Freytag for your discussion board posting next week. So this is basically a classical Hollywood style of Freytag. That's what we'll be looking at. And as a review from last time, just remember the Freytag can be done on any of those. A Freytag, every documentary film will have that kind of rising action that leads you up to the climax to make the film and kind of the idea and the resolution make sense within the process. We'll see this in all sorts of classicism. The one type of film you won't generally see this in or don't have to see it in is in a truly formal film or an avant-garde art film. Those are the ones that sometimes avoided. So for this assignment, by all means, choose something that's more realistic documentary, more classical fiction, expressionist auteur, but stick a little bit away from the formalist. It will be much harder. It might not even be able to be done in terms of an avant-garde formalist film. Any last questions? No, thank you very much and have a wonderful evening. Bye.